And we are continuing with our book, Al-Khushu' al-Salah, Humility in the Prayer by Imam Ibn Rajab. And last time we answered the question of, how can I achieve khushu'? How can I have humility in the prayer that I perform? And this came after Ibn Rajab already explained to us, okay, what's the importance of khushu'? What's the importance of humility in the prayer? What does khushu' mean to start with? Then he answered the question, how do I have khushu' in my prayer? And the answer was, if you know Allah better, you'll have more khushu' in your prayer. Because who knows Allah better, worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. And one of those worships, of course, is khushu', humility, not only in the prayer, but outside as well. And then Ibn Rajab, he explained different attributes of Allah. If you have these in your heart while you are praying, they will have certain effects on you that make you have more khushu'. For example, he said when you know Allah has absolute perfection, and when you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most beautiful, that makes you love Allah more, which makes you want to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's beautiful face in the afterlife, and meet Him, which makes you in turn have more khushu', humility in your prayer. When you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger is like no one else's anger, and that He has the most severe punishment, that will make the person have more fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which makes him in turn also have more khushu' in his salah. When you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest, then you glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in your heart and in your actions, you deal with Allah based on Him being greater than anything else in this world. But there is one attribute that Ibn Rajab is going to focus on in this section, which is strongly connected to prayer, which also makes the person have greater khushu' in his salah, which is the attribute of Allah's closeness. That Allah is qareeb, not only His closeness, but that He draws closer to the person that prays, and to the person that is humble to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when a person, like for example, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, for Allah is the greatest example. When you know someone you glorify is close to you, someone you see, oh, this is a great person, is close to you, how are you going to deal with that person? You're going to do your best to please that person. You're going to be a little shy to do anything that is immodest or wrong in front of this person. And for Allah is the highest example. When you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close, not only that, but He draws closer to you during your prayer, or at a certain time in the last third of the night, or on the day of Arafah. When you know this, then you try to perfect your worship even more with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at these times or during these worships. And you're more shy for Allah to see you in a situation where you are not perfecting your worship. You're dealing with it with not the proper manners that you should have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because of this, Ibn Rajab is going to focus on this attribute of Allah, that He draws closer to us at this time. And I would like to speculate that Ibn Rajab rahimahullah also focuses on this attribute because Ibn Rajab, one of the things he wants to teach us is not just how to perfect our worship, but also to have the proper beliefs related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ahl Sunnah, of course, we believe that Allah Himself, He's the one that draws closer to you at these times or during these worships. It's not only His mercy, not only His blessings, but He Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala draws closer. And so I would like to think that Ibn Rajab is trying to establish this meaning as well when he talks about this matter. So we'll read as much as we can. We have a couple minutes more. So we'll read as much as we can of what Ibn Rajab said related to this beautiful meaning. So Ibn Rajab said, he said, He, Allah, glorious is He, is the mender of hearts that have broken for His sake. He, glorious is He, comes close to hearts that are filled with humility to Him, in the same way that He comes close to the one who is standing in prayer, privately discoursing with Him. So you see here, he's talking about the thing we talked about, which is Allah coming closer to you. And this sentence he just mentioned is important because when you understand that I'm privately talking with Allah, yunaji rabbah, the Prophet described that when you're in prayer, and that you are in a private conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the person who is dealing with the prayer is different. So he said that Allah comes closer to the hearts that are filled with humility to Him in the same way that He comes close to one who is standing in prayer privately discoursing with Him. In the same way that He comes close to one who rubs his face in the dust when prostrating, when in sujood. And the Prophet, he talked about this, that أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ, the closest the slave is to his Lord, وَهُوَ سَاجِدٌ, when he is in sujood. In the same way that he draws near to the throngs of people visiting his house, standing in abject humility at Arafah, drawing close and boasting about them to the angels. And of course this passed to us. That's the only day where at a specific time during the day, Allah draws closer. Every night Allah draws closer, the last third of the night, but this is the only day. And of course it's past. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us many years of Arafah witnessing it. In the same way that He comes close to His slaves when they invoke Him, ask of Him, and seek His forgiveness in the early hours of the morning, and He answers their supplications and grants their request. And of course the hadith is very famous, that يَنْزِلُ رَبُّنَا فِي الثُّلُثِ الْآخِرِ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ, our Lord comes down in the last third of the night. So He says, is there someone who wants to seek my forgiveness so I'll forgive him? Is there someone who wants to ask me something and I'll give it to him? Or make dua to me and I'll answer him? So that is something, Allah drawing closer to you in your salah should also make you have more khushu' in your prayer. That's 5 minutes inshallah. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا. سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ نَشْهَدُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ نَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَنَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ.